James Fischelis, how would you summarise the essence of your message in our conference here today?
What I'm keen to get away from is the model of utopian planning, which creates a fixed idea for what the suburb should look like. What I want us to move back to is a model of flexible development based on a socio-economic centre. I refer to it as a village, and that's not the village that looks like the English village of the Tudor Beetham cottages, but a village with the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, or maybe today that's the web designer, the hairdresser, and the coffee shop, but a place where people can actually interact socially and economically, because it's that binds them to the city.
So one that reflects people's needs, rather than one that is imposed on what people, some experts think, should be people's needs.
Absolutely. They should be able to drive the changes to the city, and also the economic life of that suburb should connect it to other parts of the city as people come in to use the social and economic institutions that are in there, and it becomes a symbiotic, interlaced part of the city. And we move away from the dormitory suburb attached to a factory, which is where the Garden City movement originated.
Well, Fred, some overlap there, I think, with your message, but something extra, I think, for your core message as well.
I did want to make the point that there are some very big issues which London has to deal with, like the growth of the city. And it has to be a shared task of all of us to think about how London is going to grow. And I was suggesting that that's an issue which is presented by a central government, but not a solution. And then say, how do you, each town, each village, each high street in my case, see that you can contribute towards that? So it becomes this, London is a city of villages. It could continue to be one with identity, which is generated out of resolving real problems. My concern is that if you simply leave it to each person, they'll think others will deal with the growth of the city, others will deal with this, others will deal with that. So that it is giving a context for that local initiative.
So in order to get people's voices heard, in order for these voices to be articulated at the centre of power for planning and authority, one needs some kind of mechanism,
yes,
you
indeed.
would say. Whereas you seem to be reflecting rather more on the ambition of the will of the people somehow to be expressed in an unconstrained way, and that it will all be sorted out somehow.
There definitely needs to be a mechanism as well, but that mechanism should be driven by the economic and social desires of the people. That you might need to impose a new housing target on these towns as well, so you need to do 5,000 houses, but you choose how you do it. That's, I think, a very sensible way of attacking the problem, to give local people the choice of how their growth should happen.
So when we say it's your choice and you choose how to do it, who exactly is you? Who are these people, Fred?
I suppose my ideal system is to say we need, let's say, 30,000 houses in this area, and there's 3 different high streets, and we say we'd like you to bid what you would like to do. And there would be government support for some of those things. And if one of them says, I want to be out of this game, that's fine. But then it's a real choice. That we've had great difficulties with them even imposing a target, because then people start to react against the target. But if you start, what would you like? How much do you think you could offer? So that the government must look, a central government, at the general issues which they have to tackle. And they're not only about housing, but employment.
You told us today that we have in London high streets,
Yes.
really, not suburbs.
Yes.
We have high streets. Could you explain a bit more about that?
Well, there was a great document by Christopher Alexander from 1965, The City is Not a Tree. And he showed that we don't have hierarchical organization down to here, down to there, down to there, but we just have network. And it made me realize that the city is not an egg. There's not a wonderful yolk in the center and then all this white around the outside. What we have is we have stretched through the whole of the city, 600 high streets, which are places where people congregate. And therefore, it makes the suburbs variegated. You see that there are places where there's good transport systems. You see where there's already employment. And there's more people working in high streets in London than there are in the center of the town. And so that we already have a mechanism which is there. It's fragile, and it's not recognized. And I suppose what I'm asking for is us to, first of all, acknowledge that it's there, and then to say, how can we take advantage of that? Because I started my talk by saying that infrastructure determines the future shape of a city. And in the end, I'm saying there's enough infrastructure perhaps around today that if we use that better, we can accommodate the growth, we can identify where things are going to happen without having to expand the infrastructure.
Well, for these highly distinctive thoughts on the nature of prosperity, economic, social, architectural, life forms, we thank you both, James
Thank you.
and Fred.
Thank you.